it's this time of year where you get invited to a hell of a lot of parties. Of course, you always want to bring something and you don't really want to be in the kitchen for hours on end. But then you don't have to. Today we're making Big Mac Burger Skewers. Stay tuned to see how that's done. We're starting with ground beef. Add a little dash of fish sauce. You can of course use Worcestershire sauce or coconut aminos, work just fine. Don't go overboard with this. Fish sauce is pretty intense. We add a chopped up shallot, pepper, and a little bit of salt. This will be our burger patty, which of course can't be a patty since we want to put it on a stick. That means we're going to make little meatballs. The meatballs should be about 1 inch in diameter, and of course you want them all the same size, so feel free to use one of these ice cream scoops. I'm just going to eyeball mine. Of course you can pan roast these guys, but we want to do this with a little bit less personal involvement. We're going to pop them in the oven. I've prepared a little baking sheet here. Coat that with oil. Add your meatballs. Leave some room in between. And now put these into the oven at 400 degrees for around about 20 minutes. If you do have an air fryer, feel free to use that. That's a splendid use for an air fryer. And while the meatballs are happily frying away, why don't you give this video a like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss another episode. We need to take care of that Big Mac sauce. Of course, the recipe has never been revealed. It's McDonald's secret sauce after all. But there's pretty good approximations out there. And we're just gonna make one of those. When I read the allergen and ingredient list on the McDonald's website, it's pretty straightforward. I found a couple of good recipes, so I have an idea about the amounts. The only ingredient that they're using that you can't really get as an end user is the hydrolyzed vegetable protein that they're putting in. That has a very distinct flavor, and we are going to try to approximate that by using instant bouillon. I'm also going to add a little bit of nutritional yeast for an extra kick. So in the end, it should be pretty close to the original. Here are the ingredients. Of course, recipe down below as usual. I'm going to use mayonnaise. The original recipe does not use mayonnaise, but the ingredient list says soybean oil, egg yolks, distilled vinegar. That's pretty much a mayonnaise, except for the distilled vinegar, which usually is lemon juice in a mayonnaise. So we're already pretty close by just using mayonnaise. You could make your own, but in this case, that's more work than it's worth. Let's get started on that sauce. We need half a cup of mayo, a little bit of yellow mustard, a couple spoons of sweet relish, a tiny little bit of vinegar. If you're uncertain, leave it out and add it at the end because the mayo already has acidity in it. Then we need half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of onion powder. The original recipe asks for paprika extract. We don't have that. We're just using paprika, also about like 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon. And here comes the secret ingredient. I'm using a liquid concentrated broth. Just a few drops. And a 1/4 teaspoon of nutritional yeast. Dash of salt and grated onion, and make sure it's grated. Keep your distance, otherwise this is going to be sad business again. Let's say about a good teaspoon worth. Give this a good stir. We are not exactly going to hit the color because we don't use the caramel color that's in there and we don't have the paprika extract, but we're getting pretty close here. What shall I say? Big Mac sauce. There we go with our little meatballs. These are about just as overcooked as the patty is in a Big Mac. So we should hit the flavor spot on. Ideally you would serve these things hot, but you can of course prep them and serve them cold too. The only thing you really should be doing is put the sauce on last right before serving, because otherwise this whole thing gets soggy. For assembly, you need the typical things that are on a Big Mac. So you need some tomato, you need some lettuce. I'm using a cheddar cheese. And you need pickles. This could be bread and butter pickles if you get them out of the jar, just the slices. I'm using a regular kosher dill and just slice that up. I'm just cutting a few slices of the cheddar and a few slices of the pickles. We leave the tomatoes whole and we fold up the lettuce leaves. And all we need is skewers. These are the Asian bamboo ones. They're cute, so I'm using those. Put on a meatball, put on a slice of cheddar, or you use a microwave and melt that cheddar onto that meatball. Let me grab a plate and a few meatballs to show you. And now let's just pile some cheddar on top, make sure it doesn't fall off. And now let's quickly pop that into the microwave. 15 seconds are plenty, the cheese gets really soft and you can cake it on there. Now you need to let these cool down again so that the cheese kind of solidifies on them. Of course, just using slices of cheese is perfectly fine too. If you're using an aged cheddar like the one I'm using, that's kind of crumbly. So you sort of drill a hole into it. See, so I'm going to put on my meatball and then I'm drilling it in carefully. So that way it doesn't crack. Put on a pickle. Use some lettuce, probably half a leaf will do. Fold it up into a little nice square packet. You can use whatever lettuce you want. Something a little bit more robust is easier to skewer, so if you use a romaine, it would probably be a good one. At the end, pop on one of those tomatoes, and in this shape, you can transport them to wherever you're going, and then just drizzle your sauce on when you're serving it. Let's see how our cheese covered ones will do. Same procedure. You could use an extra bit of cheese. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna add pickle, lettuce, tomato. If you wanna make it fancy, maybe sear a little bacon and stick a piece of bacon on there. You know, play with it. There is no limit to this. Ideally, you would put this sauce in some kind of squeeze bottle. I'm using a squeeze bottle where I cut off the tip to a large degree, so I get a much bigger opening. So I'm going to fill my sauce into that squeeze bottle. You then can take that along to wherever your party is, and serving it is a breeze. And then you go to your party, once you're ready for serving, put all these things on a nice platter or something, bring your sauce, and then just top it off with a little bit of sauce. Squeeze bottle is ideal for this. Have some napkins ready because people are going to drool over these. And if you want to see other crowd pleasers, I'll put up my playlist you should watch next.